Please remember we're in the holy presence of the Lord. Heavenly Father, we come together with grateful hearts, seeking your guidance as we begin this forum on sustainability. We ask for your wisdom to bridge the gaps we face and inspire a spirit of collaboration among us. May this gathering be a source of meaningful connections and lasting solutions. Guide each of us to learn, share, and act for a sustainable future that honors you and serves generations to come. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. May we ask everyone to please sing the Philippine National Anthem. Bayang check. Mic check. Check, check. Mic check. Check, check. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. Who do we have here today? Esteemed speakers, our guest of honor, in fact. Our speakers, mga scholars ng bayan. Oh, bakit parang hindi kayo natutuwa? We also have some students from CEU with us. There you go. We got a joint venture going on. Everybody is here to learn, and we thank you for being here bright and early for the third Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. My name's Isa Litton. It's a pleasure to be your host. And of course, if you're wondering what today is all about, in fact, it's not just today. It's today and tomorrow. We have a 2-day sustainability forum for you. So we hope to see you again tomorrow. It's going to be filled with insightful talks and discussions on how we can bridge the gap and forge connections when it comes to sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, students especially, the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum is actually an annual event, and it aims to inform and inspire you not just to amplify the call to address sustainability, but to actively engage and contribute in going sustainable. In short, hindi lang sa salita. Sana po pati sa gawa. Are we ready to do that today? I'm going to keep it interactive to keep you awake. So, first off, little reminder, a little, flashback of sorts. Last year, the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum actually highlighted the urgency to respond to sustainability. We had our very own corporate partners and industry leaders discuss different initiatives and experiences in integrating the sustainable agenda in their corporate goals. Now, for this year's edition, again, we have with us visionaries from different sectors gathered today to not just share their different perspectives, but even more, their ongoing practices in going sustainable. And even more important, that's why you are our audience. It is actually to bring what they're doing closer to the next generation of sustainability champions. Who is that? Raise your hand. Are you a sustainability champion? Raise your hand. Sabi ng raise your hand. Nag-yes. Nako, not listening in class. Thank you very much, everybody. Now I know you're awake. We're going to make sure it's fun. It's not just lectures. We got some sweet treats and some surprises for you. First off, did you see some booths outside? We encourage, did you visit the booths? Well, later at lunchtime, please visit the booths. Do you have a card? Because actually, you're gonna collect stamps from each of our partner booths. And it's only a total of 6 booths. So madali lang yon. Go by each, don't just collect a stamp. See what each booth is actually offering, especially what they have to offer when it comes to sustainable practices. If you complete all 6 stamps, you get a sweet treat from Manila Bulletin. Oh, dessert for lunchtime. Again, when you go out, no going out during the presentations, okay? But when you do get dismissed for lunch, please do visit the booths, complete 6 stamps, and you get your sweet treat at the registration area. But here's something you can do now inside the auditorium. Look to your left and look to your right. We got QR codes on the walls. Can you scan them? I'm giving you an inkling already. There's a reason why I want you to do it. When you scan those QR codes and fill up the survey forms, that serves as your raffle entry. And what's up for grabs? You get to win Watson's gift item, Robinson's Movie World vouchers worth 1,000 pesos, pang date, pang group, o diba? SM gift vouchers worth 2,000 pesos, Christmas gift. And even the official Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum tote bag, which is actually really nice. I hope you saw it. So please scan the QR code, fill up the survey form, and again, that will serve as your raffle entry. By the way, last bit of reminders, only the first 50 students to complete the 6 booths outside will receive the sweet treat. So if I were you, I'd make sure I do that later on. So with that said, we're gonna have quite a morning, so stay awake, keep up, and please take what we have to share all in. To begin our speeches and to warmly welcome all of you, please welcome the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum's project lead. A round of applause for Mr. Philip Koonhing.
Mic test, yeah. I'd like to welcome everybody today for the 3rd Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. And I'd like to especially thank the speakers who'll be presenting later this morning. But I'd like to call special attention now to the presence of Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City, who gladly agreed to be part of this session again today, just as she joined us last year. And I'd also like to welcome our publisher at the Manila Bulletin, Secretary Sunny Coloma. He will personally give you the raffle gifts later on. And I'd just like to bring us back a little bit first to the first 2 forums that we've had. The first one was called Beyond Green, and that was basically because we were trying to impress upon the people who would participate and join the forum that sustainability is something more than just about the environment, which I feel a lot of you guys have been cognizant about already for some time now. And then last year, as Isa mentioned, it was called Addressing the Urgency of Sustainability. And this year, we're calling it Bridging the Gap, because I think if we try to examine now what's happening with sustainability, it's a very popular buzzword. Everybody kind of knows now about the word existing. But the question really is about recognition of the word vis-a-vis understanding what it is about. I think to this day, a lot of people still think of sustainability purely in terms of the environment. And when you look at the 17 United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, only about 4 to 5 actually are directed to the environment, directly related to the environment. The rest have to do more with about the social agendas and about the governance agendas of the companies. And so that's why we're very happy. We brought together the different companies that we have this year because they really run the gamut of the diversity of how sustainability can be addressed by the different companies. And I think it's something that you students will be able to appreciate, no? And then we also have the gap between what we call support and saying tacitly, yes, I believe in sustainability, versus real positive action. And I think whether it's on a soft impact basis or something that we do just on a personal lifestyle decision making process, there's a way for us to be able to imbibe sustainability and put it into our own lives, which I feel is important. And I feel hopefully you'll get tips and lessons in terms of how sustainability is being pushed and driven by the champions of sustainability, who will be the different companies that we talk who will be speaking throughout these 2 days. No, just for example, tomorrow we'll have SMIC here. No, so that's the Shoemart Investment Group, and they, for example, just got an ESG award for the 16th consecutive year. And so those are things that hopefully they'll be talking about and that we'll be addressing, and so that we'll be hearing more about that. And then we have later this morning Arthur Land, who's a developer who has always been going beyond property development in terms of pushing sustainability. And those will be very revelatory statements that they will be talking about in terms of how they really engage with the communities wherever they put up their property developments. And then we also have Avoitis Power, who has been pushing for clean energy from the start. And I think what will be nice is that today they'll be talking about a reality check in terms of how both sustainability, renewable energy, and also being realistic about the power requirements of the Philippines all have to go hand in hand in terms of creating a blueprint for how we can address the future. And then, of course, we have BPI, and we'll talk about inclusivity and how they've even been trying to push for financial literacy and bringing tech-savvy populations to be understanding of how they have products that can be of service to the public. No? So this is the different ways. It's really how sustainability has very different facets to how it can be approached via the public. And then, of course, later on, we'll have Ayala Corporation, who will be actually the first of our participating sponsor speakers. And with Ayala Corp, you have basically the company who's now been called by Time Magazine. Ayala Corp has been called by Time Magazine as the highest ranked in the Philippines among the best companies here in the Philippines. No? So that's something we've all reported on in the Manila Bulletin throughout the year. And I'm really happy that we've been able to bring these companies together today. And we also have an LGU who has been doing great strides in terms of sustainability, and I don't want to preempt what she'll be talking about in a while, but we have Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City. No? So the idea is that the gap that we're talking about today is really about something that exists that we're hoping to bridge, and we feel that there are opportunities for you to understand better how this can be achieved. And I hope you'll be cognizant of the fact that if there's one gap that's reduced throughout these 2 days, it's the fact that these companies outside sometimes act as competitors. But here, within these 2 days, they're all coming together to help sort of bring awareness and more knowledge about sustainability to you, the students. And why is that important? Because when we talk about sustainability, we talk about targets of 2030, of 2040. That basically is really about you guys. No? It's about you students in terms of your future. And we hope you become cognizant of that and become really aware that the time for you to take action insofar as sustainability is concerned is really now. And it's really finding ways to make yourselves be part of the solution as opposed to just listening and being a passive audience to what sustainability is about. And I think the danger for that is really if we don't do something about it, then we'll just end up being in that same situation which has been over the last 20, 25 years that you have the global temperatures rising and that we're talking about 1.5 degree increase in global temperatures next year. And that will have an impact on, for example, things like our agriculture output, on the natural habitats of the animals, the flora and fauna here in the Philippines. So it is a real situation that we're facing in terms of how we can try to solve or at least arrest and mitigate what can happen with global warming and climate change. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll enjoy the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Philip Kuunhing. Thank you for that very informative welcome speech. The history of the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum and why we keep going. So, to begin our messages and speeches and presentations today, we have our guest of honor. Ladies and gentlemen, she is the first elected woman mayor of Quezon City and a very continuous advocate of the protection of women, children, and the LGBTQIA+ community. She's also into advocating climate action, inclusive economic empowerment, among others. She's a staunch advocate of environmental protection and is truly committed to transforming Quezon City into an environmental trailblazer. In fact, she already has. Ladies and gentlemen, she was honored as the Resilience Champion by the National Resilience Council in recognition of her program focused on environmental and disaster resilience. Her consistent efforts to counter climate change and even green the city earned her the 2023 Champion of the Earth for Policy Leadership. It is one of the United Nations' highest environmental honors, and she is the first elected official to receive the award. Give her a round of applause for that. So truly, kicking off day one of the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum, here with us is the Honorable Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City.
So thank you, Isa. Can you give Isa a round of applause? So my greetings, of course, to our friends from the Manila Bulletin. Philip, for always inviting me. I think this is the second time I've come to speak, and I really hope I can say something that's different from what I said last year. And we also have our special guests with us. Of course, Secretary Coloma. Sir, thank you for being with us. And Sir Jaime, who will be giving a talk. Sir Ronald also, who will be giving a talk. And Miss Joanne Ayala as well. So hello to all of the speakers today. And warm hello as well to all of our young boys and girls, or young men and women, or since I'm an advocate for gender equality, people of all genders who are present here today. Good morning, everyone. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the Manila Bulletin for always doing these very, very important discussions, because this is an area that really needs everybody working together hand in hand, because it's quite urgent, this issue at hand. And I'm glad that you are a pioneer and spearheading these kinds of discussions. So I'd like to begin with like a speech with a short PowerPoint presentation. In 2018, a 16-year-old named not too much younger than you, named Greta Thunberg, captured the world's interest when she walked out of school and organized a strike outside the Swedish parliament. Unassuming with her slight frame, her long hair, usually in braided pigtails, she was demanding something unexpected of most young people. She was calling for concrete actions to avert global warming, particularly the reduction of its emissions. Greta's words were sharp and disarming as she demanded that more attention and action be made to address the climate crisis. She asked, if climate change is an existential threat and the most important issue of all, why was it that we carry on just like before? In the face of more massive flooding, higher temperatures, and stronger weather phenomena, why was no one acting with any urgency? She went on to speak before world leaders at the United Nations and beyond. In a passionate address, she underscored the cruelty of pinning the world's hopes on young people without acting on the problems that generations before them had caused. And I quote, she says, "How dare you?" She asked the adults and decision makers in the room, how dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? It has been nearly a decade since Greta first captivated the world, earning both much-deserved praise and the inevitable skepticism of people who refuse to believe in her cause. At this point, global energy-related CO2 emissions have reached a new high, rising continually through the years. High-income countries are said to account for at least 40% of these emissions, but the rest of the world is also called to task. A study shows that the Earth and its natural resources will soon not be able to keep up with our lifestyles. A report released just last week revealed that at our current rate of emissions, it will take just 27 years before we exhaust our carbon budget, limiting global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. Worse, we are only 6 years before we use up the carbon budget for a 50% chance of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Our target threshold, if we are to prevent the planet from experiencing the worst impacts of the climate crisis. This means that without drastic and immediate action, many of you here in this hall, of course, I might be dead, so will be Philip. No, we're still alive. Many of you in this hall will be just in your 40s when the world faces much, much harsher climates, extreme heat, a rapid rise in sea level, and loss of thousands and thousands of species. 40 plus years old, you will be in the middle of your life, no? The best years of your lives. As we speak, the world's leaders are gathered at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, deliberating on solutions to address the worsening climate crisis. Central to these discussions is the mobilization of climate finance to support developing nations as they transition to sustainable energy sources and adapt to the impacts of climate change. However, despite extensive negotiations, consensus on the necessary financial commitments remains elusive. And these financial commitments are made every year in COP meetings. And I think never has any of these commitments ever been realized. But while these debates unfold in grand halls far from home, we must remember, real action must begin in our own communities. A few days ago, for instance, parts of the country were ravaged by Super Typhoon Pepito. This came just a few weeks after the unprecedented devastation caused by Super Typhoon Christine, which dumped 2 months' worth of rain in the most affected areas. Over the summer, we endured record high temperatures, with the days scorching hot like never before. Many communities that were previously not prone to floods experience it now. As we equate progress with more concrete structures, most urban areas are now bereft of green spaces. Farming communities contend with drought and irrigation issues, as similar concerns over water supply affect urban communities. As our population continues to grow, matters like housing and waste management do so as well. Earlier, Philip mentioned that sustainability is not just about environment, but I beg to disagree. Everything is about the environment. Because if we do not address worsening climate crisis, there will be greater inequality in our world. Because as you notice, sino ba ang naapektuhan ng baha? Yung mga mahihirap na, yung mga walang magagandang bahay, yung mga nakatira sa coastal areas, yung mga may kaya naman nando naman sa kanilang mga air-conditioned buildings kahit during the heat wave. So they continue to be productive. But the poor will continue to lose their incomes and inequality will keep on growing. And so this is a social issue. The environment is a social issue. We have seen far too many instances of loss, and we must acknowledge that our viewpoint and ways must change far beyond our old ways. And please, let's not keep saying we are resilient, kaya okay lang na bumagyo sa atin, and we do nothing. Hindi po pwede yung ganyan. Let us not keep using that word resilience in the wrong way. But I really just want to say, kahapon umaraw, hindi kayo pumasok sa school. So, if I were, of course, the head of Pag-asa, papasok na kayo sa school, no? Pero hindi kasi ganun. And of course, I understand that Pag-asa is always erring on the side of safety. But do you know that in developing countries, we lose as much as 31 days of school, even more this year, because of bad weather, extreme weather conditions, whereas in the developed world, they lose about 2 to 3 days of school only. So if this continues, tayo sa mahirap na bansa na may learning loss na nga, lalo pa tayo magkakaroon ng problema sa ating pag-aaral. Samantalang sila, sa developed world, konti lang ang nawawala kasi sila naman ang gumawa or ang dahilan kung bakit tayo may crisis, pero tayo ang naapektuhan. Number 1, in fact, ang Pilipinas sa mga naapektuhan. At kawawa naman tayo, kayong mga estudyante, you will keep losing days of school because of adverse weather conditions. And now pa lang sasabihin ko na sa inyo na minsan kahit ba i-bash na ninyo ako, hindi talaga pwedeng isuspend ang klase kung walang batayan. So sana magtulungan tayo mga kabataan, instead of bashing your mayor, understand that your future is at stake here, and I am duty bound to make sure you have a good future. So if I insist that you go to school, sana naman, wag masyado masasakit ang mga salita ninyo sa social media sa akin. Okay? I believe that such tragic reality requires urgent, strategic, and collective action. That certainly is the goal for us in Quezon City. For us, sustainability is not just a policy. It is a core value that shapes our governance and development strategies. We are the most populous place in the Philippines, with more than 3.2 million residents and countless more who come here to work, study, and conduct their businesses every day. We aim to reduce carbon emissions by 30% by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. These are certainly high aspirations. I will be the first to admit. And we need a couple of $billion to be able to achieve this in our local climate change action plan. At kaya alam ko na itong mga pangako ng developed world, talagang pangako lang kasi may plano na kami, ready na kami mag-implement, pero where's the funds? No? We can only raise so much. 15% of our budget already goes to climate action, but that is not enough. We need help from those who are causing the climate crisis to begin with, but so far, this has been very elusive to us. So like I said, putting sustainability and environmental stewardship at the forefront of our collective life is a difficult undertaking. However, the heavier part of the work is to ensure that climate change and environmental protection are seamlessly woven into the everyday lives of our citizens. To open their eyes to the fact that this issue affects every aspect of our life. The air we breathe, our water supply, the energy that fuels our city, and the state of our communities. In the face of such a challenge, I have found that the more productive response is to have courage. In doing so, we have transformed sustainability into actions that our communities can practice and even embrace. To lessen plastic waste from the very destructive sachets, for instance, we set up refilling hubs in our sari-sari stores, allowing residents to buy everyday household items like detergent and dishwashing liquid using their own containers. Kanina, pinapakinggan ko yung listahan ng mga inimbitan ni Philip dito para magsalita at medyo na-disappoint ako. Wala si Unilever, wala si Procter & Gamble, wala si Colgate Palmolive because hanggang ngayon, kahit na nananawagan na po kami sa kanila, palitan na po ninyo ang inyong packaging to adopt more sustainable packaging. Si Procter & Gamble ba yun nandyan? Sinasara na yung mic ko. Our appeal for them to adopt more sustainable packaging materials falls on deaf ears. Bakit? Kasi yung sachet culture na yan, that comprises 60% of their income. So they refuse to listen to the call for to embrace sustainability. So sana sa susunod na taon, sila naman ang kasama natin dito. We are incentivizing recycling at the source through our internationally recognized Trash to Cashback program, where residents earn environmental points that can be used to pay for groceries and utility bills. Building on these efforts, we have taken a bold stand against single-use plastics. Starting with single-use water bottles, we have eliminated their distribution during all city-funded activities and events. At the recently concluded Q Cinema Film Festival, at hindi kita nakita dyan, Philip, pero lagi tayong nagtatagpo dyan because I know you like art house films. We reinforce this commitment by ensuring no single-use plastics were used throughout this event. This pledge extends to our upcoming Eco Run on November 24 in celebration of Environment Month, where we have committed to distributing only reusable cups and tumblers to participants, just like what they did in the Paris Olympics. Sinabing hindi po pwede yan, dapat PET bottles pa rin, pero sa Paris, ginawa yan ni Mayor Anne Hidalgo. Lahat reusable cups and reusable plastics lang ang binigay niya sa lahat ng participants, sa lahat ng members of the audience. At yan ay kaya natin gawin dito sa Quezon City. At sa buong Pilipinas, kung may political will lang po ang ating mga leaders. Moving forward, this standard of environmental responsibility will be applied to all Quezon City events, setting a strong precedent for sustainable practices in public gatherings. To instill these values in the next generation, we have provided reusable water tumblers as part of the school kits distributed this academic year. Complementing this, we have installed water stations in every school to encourage students to use their tumblers and at the same time drink more water. To address the growing issue of textile waste fueled by fast fashion. And I would like to repeat, tayong mga kabataan, Nax, kasama ko. Kayong mga kabataan, mahilig sa fast fashion. But please note that it takes thousands of liters of water just to produce your blue jeans. And a lot of what you wear are actually made of plastic or synthetic materials. Polyester, lahat yan, hindi yan natural fibers, hindi rin yan nabubulok katulad ng plastic, no? The clothes that we wear. So we give life to pre-loved clothes through our Kilos QC program, wherein everyone just drops off their clothes that they don't want to wear to us. We resell them. And the proceeds of this goes to supporting our city's learning loss initiatives. So, ang ganda, because we know that we have a learning problem. We have identified 7,000 so far non-readers in elementary school in our public schools. And now the proceeds of this Kilos QC pop-up, which pops up all over our city, goes to helping our kids. We also made upcycling fashionable through our Vote to Tote initiative. May picture ba tayo ng Vote to Tote? Which transformed tarpaulins from the previous elections into reusable tote bags. So eto ay walang picture, pero ito napakagandang program kasi lahat ng mga tarpaulin next year na makikita nyo na may mga mukha ng paborito nyo mga politiko, sana kasi hindi na ako kasama dyan kasi wala tayong kalaban. Pero you gather those tarpaulins and you give them to us in Quezon City because gagawin namin siyang bag. At itong mga bags na ito ay nakakatuwa, ginagamit na ng lahat ng mga ambassadors dito sa Pilipinas because they are such environmental advocates na nung nakita nila na yung bag ginawa, designed by Zara One, which is one of our best designers, at napakaganda niya, maraming bumibili. And I thank SM for being one of the stores that sells these reusable tote bags made of repurposed tarpaulins. So, and these are repurposed. Again, when we talk about a just transition, when we talk about saving the environment, kailangan lahat ay natutulungan. So these bags are being made by our women deprived of liberty inside our Quezon City female dormitory para pagkakitaan nila para sa kanilang mga pamilya. We have trained thousands of our residents to become urban farmers who now help supply produce for our feeding programs. We have likewise equipped our public markets and urban farms with biodigesters, which can turn biodegradable waste, such as leftover food and peelings, into soil conditioner. We have started solarizing our public buildings, including our schools, hospitals, and our city hall, in a bid to reduce carbon emissions and costs. We also have comprehensive systems in place to monitor the quality of our air and water. We are the only city that has invested in air quality sensors para maabisuhan namin ang aming mga mamamayan kung ano yung kalidad ng hangin sa inyong mga lugar so that we can advise you, dapat ba ninyong magsuot ng mask, should you stay indoors? Air quality, a very important component for healthcare to make sure that we remain healthy. We are likewise working in earnest to fulfill our promise to double the number or the amount of green and open spaces around the city by 2030. This includes improvements in our major parks and open facilities, plus the rehabilitation or transformation of areas into pocket parks, vertical gardens, walkways, and the like. To promote better mobility, we have committed to open 350 kilometers of bike lanes in the city. And as of this year, we are at about 60% into achieving this goal. We have also installed end-of-trip cycling facilities for bikers, starting with our city hall and our public schools. Recently, we launched our first fleet of electric buses, exploring how it will best augment our city's free bus ride services. And of course, sa totoo lang, kung yung charging station naman ay yung grid na fossil fueled at coal-powered, wala naman din saysay yan. So we're trying to make sure that we are charging our buses using solar power. And beginning this holiday season, we will be implementing carless Sunday mornings at Tomas Morato. And we commend UP because matagal na silang nag-implement ng carless Sundays dito sa campus, kung saan kayong lahat ay nagja-jogging at nagbabiking. And as one of only 6 cities selected for the C40, C40 is a group of cities that are committed to climate action. At tayo lang po ang lungsod sa buong Pilipinas na member nitong C40 cities. tayo ay isa sa mga recipients ng kanilang C40 Inclusive Climate Action Fund. Quezon City is advancing climate education. This includes the production of a book called Ako Na Ang Mauuna, a storybook which is designed to teach children at the youngest ages about climate solutions para maaga pa lang alam na nila na kabahagi sila sa solusyon ng problema. We are fortunate that the young people of Quezon City have embraced this cause, bringing to life their own ideas for sustainability. For instance, our SK in Barangay Commonwealth introduced an initiative called Rescue Seafood Basket Program, where surplus fruits like bananas, apples, and oranges and other vegetables are rescued from the nearby public market and redirected towards the barangay's feeding and nutrition program. So may yung mga batang tinimbang namin at malnourished, inassign namin sa ating mga SK at nag-imbento sila ng napagagandang programa, ang Rescue Sea program na ito, which was awarded by President Bongbong Marcos sa kanyang Walang Gutom program sa Malacanang. And we are very proud of our young people from Barangay Commonwealth. We are now replicating the model set by our young leaders in order to lessen food waste in other barangays. Meanwhile, young leaders of Barangay Payatas are redefining sustainability through their textile waste upcycling initiatives, transforming discarded fabrics into stylish and eco-friendly fashion items. Inspired by Quezon City's Reta Show, QC, Catwalk to Sustainability, yung fashion show namin using upcycled materials, they embody the ingenuity and bold spirit of the younger generation, showing how creativity can take a stand against the fast fashion industry, a major driver of environmental harm and overconsumption. Through our Quezon City Green Awards, which celebrates innovative projects in climate action and disaster risk reduction, we have uncovered similarly inspiring initiatives. Among them is the Pajak Young Aiders, a youth-led bicycle group providing vital emergency response during disasters, and the urban farming project spearheaded by the SK of Barangay Novaliches proper, which strengthens food security and advances environmental sustainability. All these actions, when combined, represent something deeper than blazing trails. Through decisive and evidence-based leadership, this is our attempt to empower our citizens to be part of the solutions that we seek, to invite them in the overarching mission to take care of our communities and of each other in the face of unprecedented conditions. As a member of a previous generation, I understand and agree that pinning our hopes on you is a hefty imposition. After all, you are inheriting a world much harsher than the one we grew up in. But as I watch you rise for causes you believe in, I cannot help but feel that spark. Your very presence today ignites that hope as we look at you as the new generation of sustainability champions coming into the fold. Among those that I really admire, apart from Greta Thunberg, is of course the Dumaliang sisters, Anne and Billy, who are doing their best to save Masungi, despite the fact that kalaban na nila ang pinakamatataas na tao dito sa lipunan. They are, for me, idols, icons of youth activism in favor of climate action. And masama bang sabihin dapat lahat kayo maging youth activist for the climate? Nasa UP naman tayo, di ba? So, yan ang aking hamon sa inyo. Maging aktivista tayo. Hindi na pwede yung kinagawian natin. Kailangan nating lahat kumilos. At kung kailangan natin mag-rally, pwede kayo mag-rally sa Quezon City because we uphold the right to freedom of expression and assembly in Quezon City because it is a fundamental human right. At kung kailangan natin gawin ito para ipaalam sa lahat na mga gumagawa ng mga desisyon sa ating pamahalaan at pati sa private sector na kailangan nilang kumilos para sa future ninyo dahil kayo talaga ay 40 years old when the time is up, gawin na natin, di ba? So I hope that today's discussions will inspire you to work hand in hand with us as we race against time to protect the future, yours and those of generations to come. And as former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon once said, we don't have a plan B because there is no planet B. So I encourage all of you to reflect on how you can all be part of this movement. And please listen to all the talks kasi in every sector, sustainability is being done. And I guess, look into yourselves. Ano ba yung interest ninyo? Renewable energy ba? Energy efficiency ba? Or paperless banking ba? Ano ba? Baka you can intern in these different corporations that will be presenting today so that you can strengthen your resolve to be part of the solution. So maraming salamat sa inyo pong lahat at mabuhay po tayong lahat. Let's look forward to a constructive 2-day discussion about sustainability. And thank you, Manila Bulletin, for this pioneering and spearheading this wonderful discussion. No? So maraming salamat at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City, ladies and gentlemen, who I'll be inviting to please go to the center of the stage to have some photo opportunities with our Manila Bulletin team. Secretary Coloma, Sunny Coloma, please join Mayor Joy on stage with Philip Cohenhing and our editor, Ray Ilagan. Please do join them on stage as well. Let's have a photo opportunity. Thank you, Mayor Joy, for all the finer points of your discussion, driving the message home that it's not just about us. The environment really is all-encompassing, not just with social, education. It matters everywhere because it affects everything and everyone. So with that smile, everybody smile for the photo. One more photos. Give it up for our keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Students, we got Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City kicking it off here at the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. At this point, may I invite everyone who just came in, can I ask you to scoot over? Everybody scoot over to the seat nearer to the center. In fact, if some of you would like to transfer to this side of the auditorium, please do so now because we want to make room. It seems more students are trickling in. So those in the back and at the edge, please do scoot over to the middle so that anyone coming in can actually occupy those seats. Scoot over to the center. You can even hop over to this side of the auditorium because we're just getting started. Thank you again to our Manila Bulletin team, Ray, Philip, and of course, Secretary Coloma for joining Mayor Joy for the photo opportunity. From our keynote speaker, we begin with our presentations with our corporate visionaries, ladies and gentlemen. And as Mayor Joy was saying, you have a platform where you can be heard, where you can learn. This is exactly what we have for you today. This Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum, it is a platform for you, for various leading companies who we have today that are actually championing sustainability with their remarkable practices and initiatives. And without further ado, we're gonna get to that already. By the way, most of them will have like 10, 15-minute presentations, and I get to chat with them after each one. Should you have a question for them, do you have your notebooks? You have pens and papers. So just like class, write it down. At the end of the session, I'll ask you to pass it forward. We're going to give it to the Manila Bulletin team so they can collate some questions. And hopefully we'll have time because there will be a panel discussion before lunch. So let's get things started, okay? Here we go. The first company to share their sustainability efforts today is the first conglomerate in the Philippines to commit to a target in line with the Paris Agreement's aim of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. You heard from Mayor Joy's opening speech, keynote speech, that honestly none of the commitments have been realized yet. But hopefully this is something we can realize in the very near future. So to talk about their company's sustainable approach to value creation, we have Ayala Corporation's Chief Sustainability and Risk Officer. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Mr. Jaime Z. Orquijo. Hey, Jaime. Good morning and welcome.
Okay, not PNG. All right. but just sort of really highlighting how important all of this is. But as was mentioned, my name is Jaime Urquijo. I'm the Chief Sustainability and Risk Officer for Ayala Corporation. Ayala Corporation is a 190-year-old diversified conglomerate based here in the Philippines. And my job as the Sustainability and Risk Officer is to really think about how Ayala Corporation can be around for another 190 years and sort of be around successfully. And so if you'll permit me today, I'll go through a little bit of how we think about sustainability at Ayala Corp and ultimately how we think about sustainable value creation as well. If the little clicker works. Oh, okay, fantastic. So just a little bit of a background. Bear with me as we sort of go through a little bit of a deeper dive into Ayala Corp. As I mentioned, a diversified conglomerate based here in the Philippines. 4 main business drivers for us. The first is Ayala Land, a real estate developer here in the Philippines, really focused on building communities across the Philippines. The second is Bank of the Philippine Islands, who you'll hear a little bit about later on this morning, but really focused on financial inclusion. How can we get as many people in the country with a bank account? Third, Globe Telecom, really very focused on the telco side and connectivity. How do we ultimately connect people? And increasingly, how do we also tackle the financial sort of inclusion problem as well with the GCash platform? And then finally, on the far right, you'll see ASEN, our renewable energy platform. So ASEN only started about 13 years ago. And really the main thesis or hypothesis there was, at the time, renewable energy existed, but it wasn't really as mainstream. And ASEN really decided to place a very large bet on trying to build out the renewable energy capacity of the Philippines, with this hypothesis that more renewable energy in the country would ultimately create a more resilient energy system, more options for ultimately the end consumer. And we have some emerging businesses in health, logistics, industrials, and education, but this is really us in a nutshell. And all of this, the whole portfolio, is ultimately linked together with Ayala Corporation's purpose statement, the reason why we all go to work within the Ayala group of companies every day, which is ultimately to try to build businesses that enable people to thrive. That's the common thread that we ultimately have throughout all of the businesses that we try to create or potentially acquire. Now, when it comes to sustainability, this is ultimately the framework that we use to think about sustainability within the group of companies. And I'll spend a little bit of time going into each one of these 3 pillars. But the first, on the far left, is our value creation model. Ultimately, how do we create new businesses? Ayala Corporation and all the businesses that I mentioned are for-profit businesses. We are ultimately in the business of trying to create sustainable businesses. And so a big part of what we're doing is trying to find sustainable ways of ultimately doing that. And the first question that we ultimately always ask ourselves are these businesses ultimately trying to address a societal challenge or pain point? If we are in the business of building businesses to enable people to thrive, we need to be trying to ultimately solve a societal challenge or pain point. And the way that we do that is firstly finding what those pain points are, and then ultimately developing really effective solutions by looking at the best technology and data that might be out there, finding really fantastic partners who might be able to come into the Philippines and really help us address this problem, and then ultimately scale it, right? If we want to really have impact, we need to find businesses that can really scale. And so if you think about sort of a day in the life of a sustainability officer at Ayala Corp, I spend anywhere from 25 to 30% of my time focusing on this pillar. And then the 2 to the right, so environmental and sort of equity action. This is probably where I spend 60% of my time. And ultimately, the question here is, are there negative externalities that some of these businesses might be having an impact on that we're not thinking about directly in the for-profit side of the business? And an externality is ultimately, is the business creating an impact, a negative impact, that is borne by someone else? And that externality is potentially not being priced in to the business model in its original sort of state. A big piece of this is environmental action, or ultimately emissions, right? Every business, not every, but a lot of businesses create emissions. We know that these emissions increasingly are having a negative impact, not only on the health of individuals, but increasingly on the climate. And the as we know, that negative impact leads to increasing storms, with increasing severity and potentially happening sort of more often. So how do we think about that? How do we ultimately try to address that? Because we know that we're creating businesses, but these businesses are having negative externalities. How do we try to address that? And for us, one of the big ways to try to address that was coming up with a net zero ambition. And so the Ayala group of companies made a net zero ambition and has a net zero ambition by 2050 to try to ultimately reduce all of our emissions to zero by the year 2050. And I'll chat a little bit about how we're trying to address that. And finally, on the far right, there are some communities or some areas where the for-profit side of the business isn't in the best place to ultimately address some of the pain points that they have. And that's where we feel philanthropic capital can really have a big impact. And so we have the foundation that does a lot of really, really fantastic work, and I can chat a little bit more about how we think that that's a really, really integral part to how we think about sustainability within the group of companies. And so if you permit me, I'll dive into each one of these pillars and just ultimately talk through some examples. And so we'll start with value creation, or ultimately how do we build businesses that ultimately enable people to thrive. One of our favorite examples is Manila Water. So in 1997, Metro Manila had a water crisis. Most of the individuals within Metro Manila did not have access to 24/7 water. And so at the time, the government, through the PPP Center, Public-Private Partnership Center, decided to ultimately create a way for the public sector to come in and participate to try to help solve this problem. Ayala Corporation was awarded the concession for the east zone of Metro Manila, and by 2022, 7.5 million customers within their service area now had access to 24/7 water. The way that a water company usually measures how effective it's been is by something called non-revenue water. So ultimately, how much water are we pumping through all of the pipes that gets lost along the way because of leaks and because people are potentially sort of tapping it. When Manila Water took over the concession, about 60% of all of the water that was going through the pipes was getting lost along the way. And by 2022, only about 10% of that water was now getting lost along the way. And that's on par with some of the larger cities in Europe or the US. We recently sold down from this business completely, but that, for us, really, really fantastic example of ultimately how we can be addressing societal pain points in a value-creative way. Gcash. Just a quick question to the audience. Anyone want to guess how old Gcash is? Feel free to raise a hand, just to make sure everyone is still here. Have a guess? How old is Gcash? No worries. Yeah, actually, correctly, absolutely correct. So I was very, very surprised to hear that, but you're completely on the money. Gcash has been around for 20 years. I joined Ayala Corporation 10 years ago, and at the time, believe it or not, Gcash wasn't doing very well. Gcash didn't really have very sort of a good user base. The sort of pain point wasn't sort of quite delivered. And believe it or not, for a while, one of the main uses of Gcash was within Globe Tower, within the canteen, because there was so little usage. Globe was really trying to incentivize usage, and so they made all purchases within the canteen only accessible through Gcash, just to really, really try to push this. But for a while, it really, really wasn't taking off. And two big things happened with Gcash. Ultimately, first and foremost, the CEO of the business knew that this was eventually going to be solving a societal pain point. The ability to transfer funds from one phone to the other without having to go through cash was really a fantastic pain point to address. And then the two biggies here were a fantastic partner came in. So Alibaba and sort of Alipay decided to invest in the business about 6 years ago. And the investment that they made into the infrastructure of Gcash was really phenomenal. And secondly, the pandemic. People were sort of restricted to their homes, not able to get outside. Funds were becoming increasingly more difficult to send to loved ones. And so the use case for Gcash really exploded during that time. And so today, Gcash by itself is now valued about $5 billion and has close to 90 million users on the platform, which is really an absolute game changer. But for us, what really makes us most exciting is the majority of those users are outside Metro Manila and are really a part of lower economic sort of segments, so C, D, and E segment groups. So huge impact that Gcash is now having. Ace and I chatted a little bit about, but ultimately the hypothesis here was, could the country benefit from having more diverse sources of energy and more local sources of energy, ones that were less reliant on sort of imports? I think a strong energy system needs to be diverse, and ultimately having renewable sources of energy helps with that diversity. And increasingly, we have two newer businesses that we're really excited about. One is AC Health. If you look at some of our health stats in the country as far as access to hospital beds and access to doctors, we are far below the average that the World Health Organization says that we should be having as a country. And so we decided a few years ago to set up AC Health to really build an ecosystem to try to address some of these societal pain points. And AC Mobility, which is a more recent business. We had for the longest time a automobile dealership business, which was doing okay but not doing fantastic. And we came to a point where the decision was to either shut the business down or potentially pivot and really just focus on the EV segment, which at the time had not really taken off in the Philippines. And we felt that we had a really, really interesting piece to play here because of the ecosystem that we potentially can build through Ayala Land and some of the other properties that the group has. And so AC Mobility was born just over a year ago, really focused on the delivery and sale of EV vehicles within the Philippines. So that's on the sort of for-profit side. How do we ultimately build sustainable businesses? And now, that second big pillar, which is really thinking about the externalities. I explained a little bit about what that externality is, but my job is to really think about how we can be addressing these externalities. And not in a way that we kind of swoop in and sort of lecture, because unfortunately we're never really going to be able to get that much buy-in from a lot of our colleagues in sort of the business units. But how can we try to think through innovative solutions to try to address some of these negative externalities? How can we find value accretive ways to deal with these externalities in ways that ultimately push the needs and sort of the aims of most of the business units? And so there are two interesting examples here. The first, ASEN, although today predominantly really just focused on renewable energy, did for a while also build out a number of coal assets. And one of the coal assets, ASEN is actually currently looking to see how it could potentially retire the coal plant earlier than its operating life. Southeast Asia has one of the youngest coal fleets in the world. We're not going to get to net zero without potentially finding, again, value accretive ways of shutting down some of these coal plants. But again, that can't just happen overnight. The Philippines is a growing economy. Energy is extremely important to help power the Philippines and its an incredible potential. But are there some models out there that could potentially start to unlock some of this potential and see how we could potentially be closing that a little bit sooner? And so ASEN's currently working with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to see how it could potentially be using transition credits to help fund the early retirement of coal. So a really innovative project which we hope has legs. And on the far right, so as we are thinking about our net zero commitments, Globe Telecom operates a network all across the country. And the cell towers need to be operating 24/7 because you want to be able to call and message people round the clock. But a lot of these cell towers operate in areas that don't have 24/7 power. And so they rely a lot on diesel generators to power these cell sites. These diesel generators create a lot of emissions and are very expensive to operate. And so ASEN was able to bring a really innovative solution to basically build a small microgrid for each of these cell towers, basically a very, very, very small solar and battery solution to help operate these cell towers. And what's so unique about this opportunity is it's so expensive to fuel these diesel generators in far-flung areas that by building this site, we're saving Globe Telecom about 60% of their OPEX expenses, and it's still an interesting enough business for ASEN to invest in, and so unlocking that sort of potential. Again, these are the types of solutions that within the sustainability team we want to be bringing forward to team members to ultimately try to find win-win solutions to ultimately address some of these negative externalities. In addition to the environmental issues, we are constantly thinking about some of the social externalities that we have. You know, working within a company like Ayala Corporation can produce a lot of strains and maybe create blind spots, especially for sort of management. And so we use DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as a lens to try to think through some of these blind spots that might be there. If you'll permit me a really interesting analogy to help explain DE&I, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. My favorite one is describing it in terms of a party. Imagine you're going to throw a birthday party for yourself. And you go out and you want to try to invite as many different people as possible, right? Not just your friends, but potentially your relatives, your parents' friends, maybe your siblings' friends, maybe individuals who might not at this point be your friends. That's ultimately the diversity piece. On the equity side, at the party, not everyone wants to necessarily eat and drink the same amount. So going around to everyone and ensuring that everyone has 2 chips and a drink, that's equality. But equity is ensuring that people can pick and choose exactly how much they want, because maybe some individuals might be hungrier than others. That's ultimately equity. And then finally, on the inclusion side, while at the party, although it's potentially very diverse because you've invited all these fantastic people, inclusion ensures that everyone who's at the party feels included. Doesn't feel like they are the odd ones out. So we use D&I as a lens. How can we now use this lens to look at our HR policies and see other gaps that there might be? Are there some potential solutions that we could be sort of applying? And with this, we've used this D&I lens to come up with a new set of benefits, increasing paternal leave and redefining what a qualified dependent is to now include domestic partners, same-sex partners, parents of single employees, in medical coverage. Again, because not every employee wants or needs the exact same thing. And so we found D&I to really be a fantastic way to ultimately try and find some of these gaps or some of these negative externalities that we could be creating that need to be solved. My final slide is just ultimately on the community side. I mentioned that there are some instances where maybe the for-profit model just isn't in the best position to help address or tackle some of these problems. And that's where we think philanthropic capital really plays a huge role. And so the Ayala Foundation has these 4 core pillars that it addresses. So these, firstly, it goes into 4 very, very important communities to the group, with the aim of ultimately ensuring that it is increasing household income in some of these communities. And again, some of the basic services that some of these communities need are beyond the for-profit model. They really, really require philanthropic capital to help address it. The second is arts and cultures, and we feel strongly that a thriving community is a community that does have access to world-class arts and culture resources, but very, very, very often those models cannot be operated in a for-profit construct. And so a philanthropic or a foundational construct is really, for us, the best way to operate some of these facilities. Leadership development, strong communities need strong leaders, and so we have a number of really, really interesting leadership programs that we help build out. And then the corporate citizenship and volunteerism program. We have about 60,000 employees across the group, so an incredible sort of workforce that could be really directed towards projects of a lot of impact. And so the foundation runs a corporate citizenship and volunteerism platform across the group to really direct the group's attention to projects of a lot of impact. And finally, the big bet, and so we feel strongly that there is an education crisis going on in the country at the moment, and so we're trying to address this in a number of different ways, which happy to go into if there are questions on that. But yeah, built on the experience that we've built up through a program called Centex, we feel we're in a very, very interesting position to try to help address this in, again, very, very impactful ways. But yes, that's really us in a nutshell. Again, it's a huge, huge, huge honor to be able to address all of you today. Thank you again to Manila Bulletin for inviting us, and happy to answer questions if there are any.
Round of applause for Mr. Jaime Z. Urquijo. And yes, I do have some questions. So Jaime, come on over here so we're kind of closer to our students, our audience here. So speaking of young, and thank you for giving us a big overview on how a conglomerate really works. So from the top down, and thank you for also showing that, you know, for Ayala Corporation that's been around for 190 years, you are still also having the younger baby companies to say. Yes. We have like Gcash, 20 years old, right? So young adult. Mm-hmm. So putting the perspective in that business, the younger businesses, of course the core is first to make money because it's still the younger business.
Absolutely.
Of course that will have a push and pull profitability with sustainability. Yep. So how do you balance that? And thank you for being transparent that some actually almost closed down. Yep. So how do you balance that for businesses?
No, I think that's a really, really important one. And I think increasingly we're seeing that the sustainability profession is becoming, I think, more and more interesting and more common within companies. I think my one big message, I think it is easy as a sustainability professional, especially to see the horrific situation that we're in to come into businesses and, again, try to sort of preach. How could you not be seeing it the same way that I am? How could you not be seeing that we really need to be focusing in sort of addressing that? I think our role is firstly to really understand the business, to really figure out where their pain points are and where those levers are, and to try to come up with solutions that help them ultimately get to that same target. And there is nuance here. So it might not be, there might be an investment needed to ultimately address some of these things. It's our role to think about how that might make their business more resilient in the future. So even though it's a cost that you're incurring today, it's ultimately in the long run making your business a lot more resilient.
But also to actually start applying, it's not something you need to defend.
Right.
If I may. Because the thing is, if it's been around for like 50 years, you're up against, we've never done it that way.
Yeah.
But if it is a new business you're getting into or a younger business, the opening to say, hey, we can try this out, is actually wider.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely. I mean, but at the same time, it's a newer business. They have more to prove, and so they might be sort of even more. So it really depends. It really depends. I think the job of a sustainability professional is to really try to learn where those nuances are and to try to come in to ultimately offer solutions.
So you do have to balance profitability with sustainability, because at the end of the day, it's a business, everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Now next, you're sharing idea boards or mirror boards in Ayala Corporation. I love how, again, you do get to listen to everybody involved and how many companies you got, right? So how? Can you give us an idea of something from left field? Just like how Mayor Joy was saying, how it was, again, the discarded fruits from markets go to the malnourished section. And it was actually kids from that malnutrition program who came up with that. Exactly. So what are your left field ideas?
Yeah, so the Shadow Board is an initiative that was born a couple of years ago, and the idea was, could we create a board, or ultimately a representation of a lot of our colleagues, with individuals who might not be senior executives, who might be sort of 2-3 layers down, ultimately to give them an opportunity to
share
put their
ideas
thoughts and sort of ideas forward. And for us, actually, a really, really interesting output of that has really been the D&I workstream that we had. So a lot of these initiatives really came from this Shadow Board, but it's also a really fantastic area for us to bring problems that we have to ask them to sort of help dissect it. There might be a specific issue that sort of comes up, which maybe the HR team doesn't quite know how to handle. Let's take this as sort of the Shadow Board to help us think through the materiality of it. Maybe an individual feels that maybe a new facility should be built within the organization. Because one individual feels very, very, very strongly about it, does it mean that the whole organization should sort of shift? What's the materiality here? How do we ultimately think about that? Shadow Board is a fantastic area for us to.
And it's a great place or a great platform to get everybody involved, where you can be heard without just having to say, I'm not in a position to.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. So see, everybody gets to have a say. I hope that inspires all of you. I got one last question, and if you do have a question for Jaime, write it down. We're going to collect it from you later. Given, of course, you ended with education. Also, Mayor Joy touched on education. Having the Ayala Foundation and iPeople push, what's your take on improving the education situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, just a sort of a factoid that stays in my head. So of 10-year-olds in the Philippines, 90% of them are not reading or writing at a grade appropriate level. I'd say that's pretty close to sort of crisis level. We've had the benefit of having about 25 years worth of experience with the Centex program, where we ultimately, in partnership with the DepEd, helped run 2 public schools in Batangas and in Manila, built up a lot of experience with that. And the 3 takeaways that we had from that, or ways to ultimately help try to improve the education system, was 1, teaching the teachers, so ensuring that not only when they graduate, but from then, there's a lot of continuing education that comes from it. 2, the importance of getting parents involved in school.
Yes.
There's a lot of buy-in.
Because teachers are actually the second parents.
Right.
It should start at home.
Yes, and just ensuring that they are very, very bought into what's happening. And the 3rd is ensuring that schools have access to really, really fantastic material. It doesn't always have to be tech, but just are they getting updated textbooks? Are they getting updated materials? And so those 3 pieces, where we feel there's a big gap is actually in pre-K. So outside of the DepEd's kind of purview, Usually that pre-K piece is usually given down to LGUs to help sort of take care of. That's an area that we really want to try to have an impact. So taking these three pieces and seeing how we could try to improve the education system community at a time.
And so that, of course, the pre-kinder kids can actually look forward to going to school once they hit kinder level.
Well, making sure that they have the right tools to get into K. Yeah, that's a huge piece.
Well, congratulations to Ayala Foundation again for getting that done. A round of applause for Jaime. He's going to be back for the panel discussion. Jaime, thank you so much. Jaime Zierquijo, ladies and gentlemen, from Ayala Corporation. So now for the second speaker, I'm going to move right along, okay, everybody? This time to share how their company has an approach of turning global goals into local action. We have the head of the sustainability of Arthaland with us. A round of applause, please, for Miss Christina Samantha or Sam Pobre. Hi, Sam. This is exactly what we're trying to drive home, Sam. It's not just ideas, but how you get things done. What's the action from our Arthaland? If you have questions, write it down. We're going to collect it. Parang quiz lang. Pass forward. For now, take it away, Sam.
All right, thank you, Isa. So good morning to everybody. Okay, so again, this presentation is about closing the gap between the global goals, which we've heard a lot from Philip and from Mayor Joy earlier, and also mentioned by Ayala Corp earlier. But how do we actually, us ourselves as individuals, as Filipinos, how do we turn it into an action? But before we go through that, may question ako sa lahat. Do we know how exactly climate change affects us? Can we have a raise of hands? I mean, can anyone tell me? We have a How does climate change affect us? You don't know?
Oh, come on.
Guys, no one?
Raise your hand and just shout it out. Come on. Climate. What happened just this weekend?
Yeah.
Come on. Ano? Super typhoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, climate change, anong effects niya? It rises temperature, there's extreme weather events, and mga super typhoons, yung super drought, ang init, ano pa, it also degrades biodiversity. But how does climate change affect us? Yes?
It's okay. It carries your voice. Go ahead. How does climate change? There you go. Nice voice.
From my personal experience, as well as the information I have gathered across the years, climate change affects the temperature in the globe, as mentioned earlier, which is, I believe, projected to be an increase of 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial age. And what this affects is the crop output, as there are certain crops that have a very specific growth period and growth, what is the word? Very specific way of growing. And with this change in temperature, they may change certain lands to be unsustainable and not fit for crop growth. And this will really negatively impact people in the lower sectors, as the prices of certain products and food will rise. And already with the global food shortage due to the rising population, just more will suffer from malnutrition.
Very good. Galing. Exactly. Climate change brings a lot of natural disasters. What is Philippines? Philippines is an agriculture country, diba? We have a lot of crops. And exactly, because of storm pa lang, sisirain niya lahat ng crops natin. And when the crops are no longer available, because supply is low, then sa supermarket or wherever we buy our food, nagkakaroon din ng raise in the produce, diba? So it affects us economically. It also affects our health, because then we have less access to nutritious food. Sige, to save time, we'll not go further into that. Meron ba actually isa pang minention ni si Mayor Joy kanina, and I think most of you have experienced this, cancellation of classes, di ba? So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Actually, it's a bad thing for you. Why? It's an economic loss. Nagbayad kayo ng tuition fee. Tapos what? Walang pasok. You'll never going to recover that day. And what? Sabi nga ni Mayor Joy, you're not only thinking about Philippines, but you're also competing to the same age in another country. So how can Philippines be globally competitive if yung estudyante natin is not actually competitive to the other countries, di ba? How do we go global? Okay. So with the effects of climate change, with all those, that's why it's important for us to actually address it and actually do something to resolve it. So I'll give you a quick overview of the climate agenda globally, what has been happening. In 2015, 196 countries adopted the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement, anong gusto niyang gawin? Sabi nila, yung mga countries daw, they're going to implement policies to make sure that the global warming will be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Actually, ilang beses siya sinabi today. And it's not a goal if there's not a target date, di ba? So that's 2050. By 2050, kailangan yung 1.5 degree maabot. And how do we know if we're actually achieving the goal that we want? If 2050 is doable, then we need a milestone year. The milestone year is 2030. By 2030, sabi nila, dapat yung mga countries will have to reduce their GHG emissions by at least 45% compared to 2010 levels. Okay, so what happened? 2015, nag-promise yung countries, 196 countries yan. Come 2017, nag-submit yung countries. Okay, eto United Nations, eto lahat ng policies na i-implement namin sa countries. That's what they call the nationally determined contributions. But may isang malaking problema. The policies that the countries submitted can only limit the global warming by 3 degrees. Ilang degrees yung kailangan natin? 1.5, yes. So kulang. Why? Bakit? Kasi the countries were saying, okay, ito lang yung kaya kong gawin. Ito lang yung kaya kong i-adjust. Tapos this could be enough, di ba? Pero by this time, sinasabi nila, no. Doing climate action takes effort and it's gonna require sacrifices. And hindi pwede yung status quo, kung ano lang yung kaya natin gawin, what's convenient, but actually try to drive it further. Okay, so just to give you an idea of what happened. Okay, so to give you an idea of what happened. So timeline is here sa baba. Tapos dito sa vertical axis is the amount of GHG emissions. The black line, that's the historical data of the greenhouse gas emissions na pinoproduce globally. So nakikita nyo how steep that curve is. So the dotted line is the projection if each country or each businesses or individuals doesn't do anything. So it's gonna skyrocket sa taas. Hindi na nga umabot sa graph. Anyway, so the policies, what the countries submitted in 2017 is the red line. So kung iisipin natin, kung ipaproject natin yung dotted line, you'll see that it actually curved. It curved the greenhouse gas emissions to a better, medyo bumaba na siya pag ganito. Diba? That's the red line. But the 1.5 degree is actually the blue one. Yan ang kailangan. So can you see how much we have to do in order to actually limit to achieve the net zero by 2050. Okay? So, sabi ni Philippines, says, rejected yung 2017 NDCs ng mga countries. So what Philippines did is that they submitted in 2021 the Philippines NDC. So Philippines committed to a 75% to reduce their GHG by 75% by 2030. Galing, di ba? 2030, ilan ang sabi ng global? Ang requirement sa global, 45% only. Philippines is committing 75%. Palakpakan natin ang Pilipinas. But, The 75%, like in any country, there's two classifications. One is the unconditional versus the conditional. Sino makaka-guess? Or what do you feel? Like, sa tingin nyo ba si Philippines, nag-commit siya higher sa unconditional? Unconditional meaning Philippines is going to do it without any conditions. It is going to happen by 2030. Conditional requires a lot of things. Finances, support from businesses in the Philippines and outside, support from civil society in the Philippines, support from every individual in the Philippines. Yan ang conditional. Okay. So raise of hands, sa tingin nyo, ano ang mas malaki? The unconditional or the conditional? Sino ang nag-guess na it's mas malaki ang unconditional? Mas maraming kaya ang Pilipinas without any conditions. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sino magsasabi ng mas malaki ang conditional sa Philippines? Magaling kayong manghula. Yes. So actually, yung 75% na promise ng Philippines, only 3% is unconditional. The rest is conditional. And that is our job. Us, meaning the corporations, and you, as citizens of the Philippines. Okay? Kasi, of course, hindi naman kaya ng government, hindi naman kaya ni Mayor Joy lahat, di ba? She'll need help of her citizens. Okay? So, sabi sa NDC ng Philippines, ano yung 75%? So, there are 5 key areas na sinasabi ni Philippines na kailangang mangyari para ma-reach natin ang net zero by 2050. 1 is energy, 2 is agriculture. Sino mga biology students? Okay, wala sila ngayon. Archi students? Anong colleges natin? Psychology. Okay. Kayo. Kayo ang mga magsasabi sa mga tao talaga dapat mag-fight ng climate change. Okay. So agriculture is another key area. Transportation is another key aspect. Kanina, we were talking about EV chargers. Ayan. E-vehicles. There's also waste. Minention din kanina ni Mayor Joy, there's a lot of things that Quezon City is doing for waste. And industry. Industry, this is the mga manufacturing plants in the Philippines. Okay. The ones on the right, yung mga nakabullet, sinamarize ko lang siya. These are the promises of the Philippines to implement by 2030. So I won't go through all of them. Okay. But as a real estate, Ortholand, as a real estate developer in the Philippines, we are not limited to a particular aspect of the business. There's a lot that we can actually influence. We can influence mass transportation. We can also influence waste and the industry. Okay, so let's see what we're doing. So, introduce to you. Sino kilala kay Ortholand? Okay, so Ortholand is a real estate developer here in the Philippines. We do a lot of residential and commercial buildings. And when we were established, we promised one thing. We are promising that whatever we build, whatever that is, no matter how small or how big or how horizontal development that is, it is going to be certified. It is going to be sustainable. And not only sustainable, but actually certified, meaning there's a third-party organization that's gonna vouch for us and say that this is actually a sustainable project. And we're actually using 4 different rating systems to make sure that ang dami na diversity. Maraming organization nagsabi na we are certified. Okay. And we do this in every single project that we actually construct. Okay. So how exactly do we do that? Okay. So just to give you a short timeline, medyo shinorten ko na yung timeline ni Ortholand. This is our net zero journey. Our first milestone for net zero happened in 2019. We were able to achieve, Ortholand Century Pacific Tower was able to achieve the world's first edge zero carbon. That's the world's first. Anong significance ng first? Ibig sabihin, now in the Philippines, na-create natin yung certification system to make to enable buildings to be certified net zero. And being the world's first, ibig sabihin, tayong mga Pilipino, kaya nating ilagay ang Philippines at the forefront of global climate action. Palakpakan natin ang sarili natin, being the Filipino. And my point is, kaya nyo din yan. It doesn't mean, not because we're in a developing country, we won't be able to do any first globally competitive. Okay, so in 2020, sabi ni Arthaland, okay, we've already finished the world's first Edge Zero Carbon building. So by 2020, we're finally ready to actually commit it to the public. Sabi namin, not only one project, but 100% of all Arthaland projects will be net zero by 2030. So the promise of Arthaland is 2030. The global goal is 2050. Medyo advanced ang gusto ni Arthaland. But okay. So yeah, we're just 20 years earlier. So that's in 6 years, hanapin nyo. Net zero na ba si Arthaland? Ayan, but that's the promise. We will be there. And today, in 2024, we've actually updated the commitment from simply being net zero to actually commit to an SBTI-approved target to ensure, kanina nakita natin yung curve, pababa yung color blue, companies can actually commit to a net zero by 2050. But we'll never know if they're actually under the 1.5. And the SBTI would say that you are actually under that color blue line. Okay, so that's the update for Arthaland. Okay, so let's see what Arthaland is doing for the NDCs. How are we closing the gap? So first, sabi niya, for energy, there are two things dito na promise ni Arthaland. One is that all of our properties, if whoever is staying there is going to achieve 20% energy savings for the whole year. That's the minimum. But in actuality, tinignan namin yung 2023 performance namin, we've actually achieved a 59% energy savings by 2023. And number two promise is that 100% of our properties will be powered by renewable energy. Right now, we are at 51%. Okay, so as a real estate developer, kami yung naglo-locate ng buildings namin, di ba? So we are able to influence mass transportation. So basically, the first step there is you put in your buildings wherein it's accessible for mass transportation. Parang hindi forced yung mga students or mga users niya to actually bring their car and come into wherever it is. So it has to be accessible by public transportation. At the same time, the facilities has to support the alternative means of transportation such as cycling and sabi nga nila kanina, electric vehicles. But if there is no charger in the building or if there is no parking for electric vehicles, then the buildings is not supporting the whole system. So yun. Okay. Waste. Waste, ano yung first R sa triple R? Reduce, yes. So the first thing that we want to do actually is to limit, is not to create the waste in the first place. So sa waste, we're looking at two things. First is the liquid form, which is mga wastewater, and number two, the solid form, which is the mga waste na napoproduce sa buildings. We're looking at this through construction and operations. So the first promise is Arthaland buildings will have 20% water savings. Kanina may energy promise kami, ngayon meron din kaming water savings. Kasi if you are saving or if the building is demanding less water, then there's less sewage water. Diba? There's less wastewater. Less to process that. Ano yung energy na kailangan mo para mas maging malinis siya, para pwede siya sa municipal water. So yun yung purpose yan. And number two, the promise is the construction. Nakita na kayo ng construction site. Ang dumi, di ba? Ang dusty. That's the reality of construction. And what Arthaland does as a sustainable developer is we try as much as possible to make our construction sites the cleanest as possible. And one of the things that we do and implement there is that the waste management. So right now, for the year 2023, 84% of our construction are actually diverted. So hindi siya napupunta sa landfill. Hindi lang siya itatambak dyan. It's actually gonna be reused or recycled in another form. Okay. Sige, before I go to this slide, question, saan gawa ang mga bahay sa Pilipinas? Or mga structures? There's two major construction material in the Philippines. Any guess? Yes po, sir. Cement and steel. Perfect. Yes. Philippines, ang construction material natin usually is cement and steel. But actually, did you know that globally, cement and steel is recognized as the two topmost highest GHG content material. And yet, yun yung dalawang gamit natin. So can you imagine, pag kayo lahat nagkabahay na, ano yung GHG footprint nyo just for having that house? Yun si Philippines at the moment. So, si Orthaland, as a real estate developer, kasalanan footprint din namin yan. Kami yung nagbibuild ng mga bahay di ba? So sabi ni Orthaland, okay, in order for us to actually reduce the greenhouse gas emissions produced in buildings, we are actively looking for a low carbon material. And one of the low carbon material that we're actually exploring right now is bamboo. Sino na nakakita ng bamboo? Siguro naman, okay. Alam niyo kung anong bamboo? It's not a wood. It's a grass. Yes. Ano ang grass? Kapag iniwan mo lang dyan, di ba minow mo na, tapos 1 week lang tumubo na agad. Ganon kabilis tumubo ang bamboo. Bamboo is considered a very rapidly renewable material. It's not even a wood, it's a grass. Sobrang bilis niya, when plants grow, the more carbon dioxide it absorbs. As long as they can maintain that form, the same way with tree. The only difference of bamboo and tree is that ang tagal sobra ng tree tumubo. While bamboo, sobrang bilis niya. Okay, so what we're trying to explore right now is we're going to build bamboo structures. But don't think about Ibuku Bali type of structures. Or yung as in bamboo talaga. Tapos may imagine mo magkikrik yung floor pag tinapakan mo. No, this is going to be a very modern building kung saan medyo normal yung itsura niya because it's gonna be a processed bamboo. We call it cross-laminated bamboo. Anyway, and we're not putting it as floor finish or wall finish. No, it's gonna be the structural members. Meaning, siya yung foundation, siya yung floor, siya yung column, siya yung bubong. So we want to advance bamboo in such a way, hindi lang siya toothpick lalabas sa Pilipinas. We are going to be pioneers of bamboo construction. Why? You know, other countries will not do this. Because in other countries, there's more wood than bamboo. Here in the Philippines, we have a lot of wood din. Kaya lang nagkaroon tayo ng illegal logging, di ba? Kasi sobrang bilis sa consume. While bamboo, sobrang bilis din niya mag-grow. So we can actually make use of this resource in the Philippines. Okay. But there is a very, very, very big gap. Right now, hindi namin, as Orthaland, hindi namin siya magagawang reality at the moment unless there's a market change. And how is that? One, wala palang RK dito. There's a structural code in the Philippines that actually stops us from building bamboo construction. Yes. One, structural code of the Philippines only mentions wood particularly. It does not mention bamboo. So because of that, we aren't able to, it's like the structural code of the Philippines will stop us from building. But there's a little bit leniency sa structural code. It will allow us to build only up to 2 floors? 4 floors? 2 lang yata. Anyway, but if we really want to turn our buildings into a bamboo construction, then kailangan yung 50-floor story sa BGC na building has to be bamboo construction, di ba? Otherwise, limited ba tayo sa pavilion? Limited ba tayo sa 1-story housing unit dyan? We want to put this at the scale. So that's one big technological gap. Number 2, because the code does not allow the bamboo construction, there is also an inadequate research for bamboo. We don't know the properties of bamboo. Paano ba? sabi natin, education system, na hindi natin natitrain or hindi natin nabibigyan ng access more yung students natin in green skill, to achieve more green skills. So that's one gap. And number two, if we look closely to this percentage, makikita din natin actually there's a gender gap. 10% of women, only 10% of women have at least one green skill. And men has 17%. Both numbers actually are very low. Kailangan pa rin natin siyang increase. But we're also looking na, but this also shows na naiiwan din yung mga babae compared sa mga lalaki. Okay, so what Arsalan is doing right now, because we've experienced it. We've been opening positions in Orthaland to actually, particularly to architecture students kasi. And we've seen there's a very big gap of what they've learned in school and what we need in actuality sa work. So what we did is we created the Orthaland Masterclass. This is a training program tailored for architecture students to help hindi pa sila nag-graduate, na-achieve na nila yung green skills nila para whether they enter Orthaland or they enter a different firm in the Philippines or globally, then they actually have that skill. So we are trying to close that gap. And right now, this is the second year that we've run this. And 67% of our students are actually women. And 33% of those who are already working have now a green jobs. Have now green jobs. Ayan. So I would like to close this presentation with a question to everyone. How are you going to close that gap? Yeah.
Actually, we're going to give them some ideas, something to ponder on. But hey, Sam, ladies and gentlemen, Sam, thank you so much. One quick question for Q&A because we will have a panel discussion later. First off, you were asking about the bamboo research. Maybe our professors from UP can pass that along. Because of course we do have our professors from UP, where are you? Raise your hand. That's a great initiative that you can pass along maybe to other teachers, to at least those in the engineering or design. Thank you for that. But speaking of design, Pam, this is my question. Green infrastructure, design innovation, the idea that it's costly. You're already saying there's a gap, there's no supply, there's no demand. But to push people, especially the younger ones, to get into it, how can you do that? Because after all, it should be across the board. And it's something of an opportunity for people to get into. What would you like them to take away to say, hey, I can do this too? Because tahimik sila nung tinanong mo eh.
Okay. Ang dami. Wait,
Yeah,
hindi ako
wait lang.
makapag-decide ko anong gusto ko sabihin sa inyo.
Especially from the point of view of a student.
Yeah.
That's exactly who we're wanting to, after all, galvanize today. To make them step forward and say, I can do this. So especially for green
Yeah.
buildings.
Sige. So, your age right now, school pa eh, di ba? I bet hindi nyo pa iniisip ko saan kayo titira in the future, right? So, and sometimes, and being a student, you don't actually have your own money yet, di ba? Because you're not yet working. So you don't have the power of choice in a sense.
Not yet.
Not yet, yes.
Financially.
But your parents has. And you, sinasabi ko sa inyo, you're very influential to your parents. I think you are the first voice to actually influence your parents. This is the generation. I'm not sure. Sorry, can I have a show of hands? Sino yung may parents na naniniwala there's actually climate change?
Show of hands. They also understand.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
In
So
fairness,
supportive.
okay.
Supportive, yeah.
Oo. Are they doing something about it?
What's the scenario? Pinagsasabihan kayo ng mga magulang nyo? Or kayo ang nag-a-advise sa mga magulang nyo? Pareho. Very
wow.
open to discussion. Very good.
Oo nga.
Good families.
Very good,
relationship.
very good. Kasi actually, this is the conversations that we have. Actually, in my generation, we're not yet there. I mean, at least for me, my parents know that there is, actually, they don't believe in climate change. Kahit na I'm in the sustainability field. But they do sustainability initiatives because of the economic aspect of it. Diba? Because it's very practical. But when I talk to them about climate change, sarado na agad. But I think that is our job. Your parents, your household, tayo pa rin yung merong pinakamalaking influence to them. So, wag natin silang sukuan. let's still talk to them, help them make the right choices, to make sure, because it's our future. You are 40 by 2050. Will you have a very good planet by then, or do we just let it happen?
As Mayor Joy said, sustainability starts at home. Thank you. With that said, Christina, Samantha, that was like Sam, Pobre, ladies and gentlemen. Sam, we'll see you in the panel discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. All right, I got something to wake you up. I got a list here with our raffle prize winners. Those who actually filled out the QR codes, listen up. Claim your prizes at the registration area during lunch break, okay? For those who won the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum tote bags, I have 12 winners. Mauri Julia Fulgar, Althea Luis Pungan, Mary Rosel Sorongan, tama ba? Sorongon, mali, Sorongon. Rafael Clyde Saavedra. Huh? Sorongon, you got your name? Okay, Rafael Clyde Saavedra, Giwani Lu Gulinaw, Joaquin Armand Philip, Sver Jasly Babol, congrats, Noel Arayon, Patricia Dimayuga, Micaela Franz Doctor, Patricia Ko, and Molly Jean Idiesca. Congratulations, you win tote bags. Claim it at the registration area again by lunchtime. Lastly, 2 winners of Watson's gift items now, Joanne Regaspi and Aliyah Charmel Chavez. Claim it at lunchtime. Moving things along, because I think we do have to cut off by 12 noon. Let me now introduce our third speaker. Before they do, let me tell you about the company first. It is an energy solutions company. They provide dependable power across the Philippines. And through their coastal and river cleanup initiatives, they were able to collect more than 100,000 kilograms of waste. How sad. Everybody, please watch this. Oh, so sorry. Okay, surprise. We're actually going to put him on stage already because he can't wait to talk. We got with us Aboitiz Power's balanced approach to energy sustainability. A round of applause for the Vice President for Corporate Communications. We got Mr. Ronald Sui Suarez. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Isa. Let me see if this thing works. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Sui Suarez. I'm the Vice President for Corporate Affairs at the Aboitiz Power, the energy arm of the Aboitiz Group. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and good morning once again. Our journey is guided by a powerful purpose, transforming energy for a better world. As a leading energy solutions provider in the Philippines, we are dedicated to responsible operations and strategic investments that fuel our economy and, more broadly, our nation's hopes and aspirations. We provide 1 out of every 5 megawatts of installed capacity in the Philippines. And together with our partners, we account for the country's largest installed renewable energy capacity. Every day, we power the lives of over 1 million customers, ensuring that key cities in the Visayas and Mindanao are brightly lit and even visible from outer space. I'm grateful that our friends at the Manila Bulletin for their warm welcome today. I also want to acknowledge my fellow presenters, Jaime and Sam, and also Mayor Mayor Joy pala, for their presentations, and I commend their respective sustainability programs. I'm thankful for this opportunity to learn from all of you, and I'm honored to share my thoughts on the critical topic of energy and sustainability. Let me delve into Aboitiz Power's distinctive and balanced approach to today's challenges. As the Philippines navigates the complex energy landscape, we face a growing demand for the electricity driven by our modern lives and the need to protect the planet we call home. The Philippines is in a dynamic phase of economic growth wherein more and more Filipinos enjoy prosperous lives, leading to a significant increase in energy needs. a trend that experts tell us is only set to continue. Substantial investments in our power sector are essential to ensure a reliable energy supply to fulfill the potential of future generations. We must also confront a sobering reality. The power sector contributes to global greenhouse gas emissions, accounting to about a quarter of the share, while others come from transportation, industry, the built environment, and agriculture. Through the contributions of each would greatly vary depending on the country. Greenhouse gas emissions seriously threaten our nation, including our ecosystems and coastal communities. While the Philippines' contribution to global emissions may be relatively small compared to that of more developed nations, which is made even more insignificant when historical figures are taken into account, we recognize our shared responsibility as part of the global community. This understanding strengthens our resolve to innovate, operate more efficiently, and build a cleaner energy system that will power our future. It is easy to call for increased renewable energy usage while advocating for the phase-out of fossil fuels. But the truth is, as we continue our economic journey, we can only abandon traditional thermal sources once commercially viable alternatives are available. Achieving energy security, characterized by a steady and uninterrupted energy supply, is essential. Reliable and affordable energy access is vital for economic development, industrial growth, job creation, and a higher quality of life. This isn't a matter of choosing over one or the other. It is about an and solution, establishing a balance. We can tackle the dual challenge of energy demand and climate responsibility by diversifying our energy sources. Blending renewables with traditional fuels, as well as improvements, growth, and modernization of the transmission and distribution segments of the energy supply chain. Energy Secretary Popolitilla recently mentioned that a balanced energy mix has the advantage of flexibility and adaptability, such that when new technologies are ripe for scaling, our energy system can adapt at the opportune moment. Thermal power may be reliable, but it emits greenhouse gases. Though clean and sustainable renewable energy sources can be intermittent depending on the weather and impact environment and the broader ecosystem due to land and water resource use. However, integrating various energy sources can create a more reliable and sustainable energy system. For example, natural gas is a cleaner alternative to coal as a base load source. It also works in complement with renewable energy, allowing us to ensure energy security while expanding our renewable energy capabilities. Aboitiz Power aims to find a balance between renewable energy and thermal sources. By the end of this decade, we target adding 3,700 megawatts to our renewable energy portfolio, working towards 4,600 megawatts of clean energy and a balanced mix of sources. This vision aligns closely with our country's aspirations, aiming for a 35% renewable energy share in our power generation mix by 2030 and reaching 50% by 2040. As we strive for a sustainable energy future, we also recognize the profound significance of social responsibility. Our priority lies in engaging with communities and working with our hosts to mitigate the impact of our operations. The trust of the communities we serve is vital to achieving long-term sustainability. By investing in social investments such as education, healthcare, rural electrification, and livelihood programs, we empower communities and lay the groundwork for lasting relationships. Our scholarship programs have allowed deserving students to excel and contribute to their communities. Many have flourished in various fields, while others have returned to Aboitiz Power to give back to the organization that believed in them. John Christopher Tagalog, the eldest of 9, always dreamed big. His father's DIY spirit inspired him to pursue electrical engineering at the University of Southeastern Philippines. With the support of an Aboitiz Power scholarship, he excelled academically and professionally, despite facing challenges like the pandemic. His determination and the company's support led him to fulfilling his career as a field engineer in our subsidiary, Therma South in Davao City. Our distribution utilities are a proud partner to the national government in initiatives like the Sitio Electrification Program, which has brought electricity to underserved rural areas, igniting hope and the possibility for countless families. Take, for example, 14-year-old Neki Kanlom from a remote barangay in Naga, Cebu. Once deprived of electricity, she struggled to pursue her academic dreams. Thanks to our initiatives, her village now shines brightly with power, allowing her to focus on her goals. Our distribution utilities have energized 99.9% of these far-flung communities within our franchise areas. While we acknowledge that we might never reach 100% as new sitios spring up, even as existing ones get connected, we're proud of our impact on the lives of many of our customers. These are just some real stories demonstrating the impact of our desire to participate in nation building. By working collaboratively with our host communities and stakeholders and operating responsibly and efficiently, we can deliver social benefits to the country and millions of Filipinos. Let us strive to learn more about energy. Let us strive to learn more about energy and appreciate how it is a vital part of our lives. The worst type of energy is having none at all. Use this knowledge to make a difference in our daily lives through energy efficiency and other sustainable personal choices and practices. And finally, let us use this knowledge to embrace a pragmatic energy system that will help the country and more Filipinos become their most excellent versions of themselves in the future. Together, we can create a sustainable legacy that inspires and uplifts everyone. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Sui. I got a question for you, of course, just to dive deeper into what you were presenting to us. Thank you again. Sui is from Aboitiz Power. And again, see how the many different topics we are actually bringing you. It's not just about design. It's not just about creating value. It is also all about power, because without power, how can we run our lives?
That's
yes,
true. Thank
convenience is gone. Now here, especially as a wake-up call, I think, for our students today, renewable energy versus energy security.
Yes.
Those are two very different things. Where are we really today?
I think it's energy security and sustainability should go hand in hand. No? Should not be made to choose between one or the other. Energy security, as I said, no, it empowers our daily lives. However, it is the dual challenge that we face. No, we need to have both. We need to establish both. And that, and by doing so, we can fulfill the fullest potential of many millions of Filipinos, and of course the competitiveness of our country as well.
Now here's the thing, Sui. They're not paying for their electricity bills yet. Tama ba? So why will this count for them? How can they come in? Again, it's a discussion with parents, maybe. Because are you even aware what sustainable or renewable energy are? Nagtatanong ba kayo, saan kayo how do you say, saan sila naka-plug, ganun, saan sila connected? Do you even know where? So what can they do to actually broaden their understanding or at least their interest when it comes to this?
I think this question, we had this discussion before when we had our sustainability forum in UST, a few months ago. I think what's really important is for everybody to be informed about energy. It's an important topic. It powers our daily lives, di ba? That's number one. Second is that I think by being informed, we need to apply that knowledge, no, in order to, to make the right choices, even the small micro decisions that we have, energy efficiency and changes in our lifestyle are very
Unplugging when
important.
it's not charging, turning off the lights,
Correct,
switching
correct.
bulbs.
Yeah, and by doing so, I think it affects the, all of our little efforts sum up to something really great. And then finally, I'm reminded of this, the words of si Mahatma Gandhi. He said that the future depends on what you do today, right? So in fact, he didn't say the future depends on what the government does for you today, right? He says what you do today. So I think that really drives the point that everybody has a role to play.
Thank you. With that, can we give Sui Suarez, again from Aboitiz
Thank
Power,
you.
a round of applause. Thank
Thanks,
you
Lisa.
so much, Sui. Moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, it's our last speaker. Please welcome, diba, different industries, different fields. We got power, we got real estate, we got, of course, corporation earlier, Ayala Corporation at that. It's time to hear from the head of the sustainability of the Bank of the Philippine Islands, of course, under Ayala Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, giving us the last talk or presentation today, Ms. Joanne B. Ayala. Hi, Ms. Joanne. I love how all these considered are really coming together because in any area or any industry, sustainability really has an angle, no? Take it away, Ms.
Very
Joanne.
much. Good morning everyone, and thank you for staying on. I am the last speaker, so I know it's a challenge because I stand between this and lunch. Okay, so I'll make this also very interesting for you. This is a speech. This is a presentation from a bank. No, so you might ask, why would a bank be interested? Why would we do sustainability? And we've been doing this since 2008 formally. In fact, we've been doing it since our chairman, who flew in from Harvard in the 1980s, came home carrying people, planet, profit in that sequence. So think about it. So we have actually been doing sustainability for the longest time, but more formally since 2008. So just to call your attention, by the way, it just came from Baku, Azerbaijan. What's happening there? Do you know? It's COP or COP29. I flew in last night just to make sure I'm here for you today. So fresh from...
Can we give Ms. Joanne a round of applause, please? She came for you.
So just in case you don't know what's happening there, representatives from all over the world are there negotiating on what to do. They're asking for pledges from the more developed or the richer countries to ask for help, for loss and damages happening to the more affected countries like us. And look what's happening. So this is the temperature, 1880. Look at how it has risen through time. And where are we today? Look at that rise. It's an exponential rise in temperatures. And what does that mean? It's very dangerous because we're tracking over 3 degrees higher than pre-industrial levels in terms of temperature. The target is 1.5. So we're more than double the target, and the concern of a lot of scientists is that we may reach a point of no return. So but when you're young, it's like, it's too far from now, but reality is you guys are more at risk than we are. Fortunately, we have been in this earth a bit earlier to enjoy it in a much better state. So sorry to the next generations if we don't fix this. It's a bit harder to hear that, but sometimes it has to come that way. Remember, too, that as we impact the environment with the things that we do, so we damage the environment has its own way of attacking us back. And it is most prominent in the Philippines. We are the highest ranked country when it comes to vulnerability, and this is by the World Risk Index. So most vulnerable because we have impacts coming from, this example is not even climate, do you know? And this is one of the messages I've been carrying and I was trying to talk about in COP, because I say we are very much affected by climate. Yolanda is the biggest story, the strongest ever typhoon to hit land. But in the Philippines, we have another type of risk, which is not even related to climate. Can you believe that? We are along the Pacific Ring of Fire. That's why we have an average of 20 earthquakes a day. So climate and non-climate we've got them all. So, here are the typhoons. When they show this, they're like, that's a woman, yes, and she's smiling, yes. And some of the kids, you see them diving into the flood and spitting out water after that. Why? Because the Filipinos just see flooding so frequently that it's part of our lives. There's no way that a year will pass that we do not experience flooding. We have around 20 typhoons a year, and some of which are very strong. So, and they become stronger and more frequent. Now, statistics on poverty continue to be high and continue to worsen. And the good thing is that we have been improving on our sustainability standards. You see, it's carrot and stick, right? So incentives or penalties. What's been happening is that our regulators have become more and more conscious in making, especially business, comply. Industries comply with regulatory standards, with important concerns, with important policies, regulations, laws to make sure that climate impacts, the negative climate impacts are regulated. Okay, what's another fact? Just in case you don't know this yet. Silver medalist. The Philippines has the second most expensive electricity in the region. If it's ASEAN, it's gold. We get the gold medal, right? So what a competition that we don't want to win in, right? So what does this mean? Just in case it's not very clear yet, no? When a manufacturing facility wants to do business, would they go, especially if they're very energy intensive, so they use a lot of electricity, would they go to the Philippines? If you can do at almost a fourth of the price in Malaysia, look at the price in Laos, and look at in Myanmar. In Vietnam, in Indonesia, although these guys, the thing is that they subsidize their electricity because they have coal and other resources. But anyway, that is one thing that works against us. This is just an enumeration of how the central bank on its own already manages down the impacts, negative impacts of climate change and other non-climate risks by imposing this on banks, from sustainability frameworks to reporting, etc. Why is it important? Why is the central bank doing this? Because the banks fund the projects that impact climate change. See, the banks, like in the case of BPI, the Bank of the Philippine Islands is lending to practically all industries except those in our negative list. So we cover the whole economy. Now, so why do people do sustainability? This is what I say to our clients. I say, you have to comply with regulations. And the regulations, as mentioned, have become tougher and tougher. Second, global sustainability standards. They've already risen. And this is when Europe, for instance, increase their sustainability metrics, it's easy now to cascade it to the rest of the world. Now, also, good thing is that especially your generation, Gen Z and Gen A, B, client demand, the need, the asks have become more and more towards green options, especially outside the country, but also in the Philippines. It's already happening. And this is one thing I'll emphasize later. Economic and financial benefits. Human nature dictates that you do something that that benefits you or something that you feel good about. So if that can be seen in a sustainability initiative, then that becomes easier, right? And then the other thing is, so that's the carrot. This is the stick. If you know the pain, if you feel it, then you'd know, oh, I have to do something about my risks. I'll have to be more ready, I have to be more resilient, and as much as possible, I try to reduce my impact, my negative impact to the environment. And I'm talking about you. I know you're students, no? So normally our campaign sounds different, but internally in BPI, I changed the campaign to this. Sustainability starts with me. Think about it again. Sustainability starts with me. Don't look at the person beside you. Just think of yourself first. It starts with me. How long do you keep the shower on, the faucet on? Do you keep the lights on at night? Do you let the TV run? Do you ride and take all of these trips even if it's unnecessary? sustainability starts with me. Okay, so fortunately, in an organization, it's always easier if you have a champion on top who's driving it. Okay, so in an organization, fortunately, I belong to a group which is spearheaded by our chairman, who has been doing sustainability even before you guys were born, so since the 80s. And then each of the group subsidiaries have an assigned sustainable development goal. You know the UN SDGs, the 17 colorful boxes. So in BPI, our assignment is this: decent work and economic growth. Why? Because we're a bank. So we can fund these companies and guide them towards better sustainability or sustainable practices. We even have a parallel vision and mission, because normally businesses have a vision and mission. In the case of BPI, we have one specific to sustainability, which talks about being a responsible bank and making sure that as we resource, craft our products, serve our customers, and add value to our shareholders, we incorporate sustainability standards, or ESG standards. And when you ask, even our chairman or our president, what's the top priority in the things that we do you know this was the common answer? I called our chairman Sunday, 2 o'clock. What is your first thing? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when we're going to talk about sustainability? And said, financial inclusion, even before I finish my question. Then preservation of the environment, sustainability, and social good. Now, I'll show you a couple of examples of how we do things in BPI. And one of these is a program called Sustainable Development Finance. So we finance SMEs. SMEs don't have engineering departments. There are very few in the company. But these are the types of projects that we finance. So changing their air cons, changing their lights, more efficient machines. Of course, solar, but we have clients who have solar on ground, which are huge, but we have clients who have solar on roof. So roof solar, you can do that for your homes. Geothermal, this is a bit big time. Wind, that's a little bit big time. What is another thing that's relevant to you is green buildings. You can have green homes. And Arthalan was talking about saving at least 20% in electricity and water. That is based on EDGE standards, which is IFC standards for green buildings. That's exactly what we do as well. We actually funded some of the projects of Artha Land, and that is exactly aligned with EDGE standards, which can be also adopted in your very homes. Saving no less than 20% in electricity, no less than 20% in water, and if it is during construction, saving no less than 20% in the embodied energy in the materials used. So we can do that. And what do? We also have free technical consultants. Together with this proposition is free technical consultations. That's why you'd see later how many we've done of these and how many are successful. Okay. There. So other than the projects sent earlier, we also have sustainable water, we also have pollution control, and there. 417 projects done, primarily SMEs. And in banking, there's a word called NPL, non-performing loans, meaning the projects failed. We have 0 failures. And that is the reason why the World Bank, the International Finance Corp of the World Bank Group, brings me to so many countries all over the world just to say that we prioritize SMEs, and normally the SMEs have a hard time and then their projects fail. In this particular scenario, we have 0 non-performing loans. That is because we have free technical consultations aiding, making sure that the projects are not only financially successful, but technically assessed, feasible at the onset. Sorry, I forgot to mention. Also, here we have renewable energy at 126 projects. Energy efficiency, lowering the electricity consumption at 123. And then green buildings and agri at 168. Okay, so we also have bonds. So you say, what are bonds? Think of like time deposits, but this time you invest into bonds into a certain or a specific labeled bond, which is called either green or social or a combination of both. So we've been doing that as well. Won't detail given the time. We also, this is the new kid on the block, blue finance. this is close to my heart because I go to the sea a lot. I do scuba diving. So when we talk of protecting the ocean, oh boy, even in BPI, for you guys, I'm sure a lot of you also do that. Some of you do free diving. This is new because this is protecting the sea. 70% of the surface of the earth is actually water. 70%. So can you imagine what goes on there? No? And we were talking about plastics earlier. That is very important because it's a huge pollutant of the sea. We are also talking about shipping and logistics, solid waste, sustainable tourism, etc. So these are the components of sustainable blue finance. Okay, this is something I need you to look at. Bring out your phone and try to scan this. Okay. What will it tell you? Then you input the address of your home. Why? Because this system is free, done by the government itself, the OST to be exact, and FIVOLCS, and it will tell you how exposed you are to 3 types of risks. Seismic, the earthquakes, fault lines, etc. Next is typhoon. How high would the flooding be? How many days will it stay? And then the last one is volcanic. We have done this for all our clients. Of course, we tell our clients, sir, would you really want to construct a 24-story building? You're just a few meters away from a fault line. And then we checked it out. He said, oh, okay, no more. That name I cannot mention, but I can mention this one, Bamberton, a 19-story building in Arca South. He said, am I really exposed to intensity 8 earthquake? I'm going to be ready for intensity 9. So during construction, he embedded rubber rollers from Japan, even invited the press just to show how he's making that building, Arca South, in Arca South, Bamberton, now ready for intensity 9. See, so what I'm saying is that, do you know how exposed you are? This is already a free system. I've spoken to the LGUs a few weeks back, and this is just what we're saying. Please spread this around because the system is very, very detailed. It can tell you how exposed you are. Now, we said in BPI, financial inclusion, right? Now, there are 2 things that digitalization does. One is financial inclusion. The bulk of our clients using digital banking today come from the very remote areas, especially islands in the Philippines, where we have over 7,000. No? A lot of them underserved, underbanked. They're too shy, in fact, to enter the branches of BPI. You know what I say? The more beautiful we make our branches, the more intimidated they are. So we call it phygital. No? We have physical banking, but we also have digital banking because it's the only way we reach them. And I tell you, even the smaller folks, fishermen, market vendors, they have smartphones. We did a survey and we said, oh, so they can. And we have also partnered with non-banks, no? In Cebu, Prince, in Tuguegarao, no? There are already, can you believe this, no? Go to a BPI agent, we call them Banco Mare, Banco Pare, and they have a QR code on their shoulder. You can open an account with just one ID, and then you can also transact with the likes of Prince, no, and several other partners through their cashier. You can deposit through them and withdraw through them. Can you believe that? That is how banking happens today. So we have BPI bankers crossing the seas, going to Camotes Island a couple of weeks ago, and telling the people there, basta may internet, no? Tell the people there, open an account. No? And you can deposit, you can withdraw, you can get cash. Because we realized it cannot be just card. It has to still be cold cash, especially in the provincial areas. And the loan that we used to release, smallest was 10,000 pesos. And foreigners were amazed by that amount. No? That's less than $200. The smallest loan that you can get from BPI now, no? Of course we know because the farmers and the fishermen, the market vendors, no? Selling kangkong on the street, she needs just 2,000 pesos. Then we said, okay, smallest loan, 2,000 pesos. That's how BPI is, and we don't even have maintaining balance, and there's insurance that goes with it. But I can go on and on, but that's financial inclusion for you. These are just examples of clients who are happily doing it, like in Cebu, 38 Park, that's a green green condominium, green office condominium. This is a huge solar farm. I'll just go quickly. So Artha, where's Artha? Right here, that's Leopold. And this guy, this is a small building in Davao, 6-story. I thought we'll have an NPL. I thought we'd have a problematic account because he said, we have a problem. Lockdown. People are closing shop. Okay, so I'm a landlord. What happens now? But you know what? Few weeks of a lockdown, people pulled out. The minute the lockdown ended, they flocked back and they were priority. Why? Because the promise is, and the ones who were tenants said, our savings in electricity is more than 20% because he's EDGE certified, just like Leo. So 20% less in electricity, 20% less in water. Why would you say no? That is what I'm saying. If we can incorporate economic gains, financial benefits out of a sustainability initiative, then it becomes more real, it becomes more acceptable. It's not just a heroic initiative. So this is just a schedule of the green bonds. For you guys who have investments, by the way, beyond the green bonds, we also have investments in sustainable securities with our wealth group. And the minimum investment is 1,000 pesos. So they've been campaigning to the schools. So just in case you haven't heard it yet, there's a 1,000 peso investment. Now, those who are aware of coal, we have been committed to reduce our coal to zero by 2032. Okay, to have it by 2026 and zero by 2032. So we have not been lending to coal. Painful as it is, because we know, are there other banks here? Because other banks say they're not going to lend to coal, but they still do. So what we're saying is, come on, our president was saying, John, medyo masakit na to ha. Kasi we say no, and then other banks say yes. So the coal projects continue. No? So this is a call to really do it together. Now, this is another thing that we've done related to reducing coal. This is, as mentioned earlier by Jaime, we have been part of ASEN's reduction of the life of a coal plant. From 2055, supposedly, end of operating life, we brought it down to 2040 or 15 years ahead. Okay. So, first in the world, I was asking at COP29 if there's anybody else who has done this. There's none. So we are, in the Philippines, is the first and still the only one who has done transition finance, which is to reduce or shorten the life of a coal plant. Now, there are industries to whom we are no longer lending. These are related to illegal activities, vices, unethical behavior, etc. And we also have a responsible lending policy which ensures that we avoid pollution, loss of biodiversity, hazard to human health, workplace safety, involuntary resettlement, and indigenous peoples' protection. Now, one of the things that I know the central bank will ask me to teach other banks again, they usually do. Madam Chuchi would always say, Joanne, could you please be generous enough to teach other banks what you do? Why is your sustainability campaign in BPI very successful? This is the new one. She hasn't heard this yet, so she'll ask me again to teach. Goals, action plans, and metrics, we incorporated in the rating system. So in your case, scorecard, or your report card, sustainability. So a minimum of 10% is required out of a BPI employee. So if you're a BPI employee, you cannot not do sustainability as part of what you do. You cannot plant trees or give food to the people behind your house and say, okay, I did something sustainable, I'm 10% na. No, it cannot be. It has to be related to what you do. So if you're in credit cards, you have to go paperless. If you're doing transactions for your clients, you go digital. Okay, so it has to be something related to what you do, the line of work that you do. So we call them goals, action plans, and metrics for sustainability, or GAMS for short. So this is just an enumeration. We've been doing sustainability for the longest time. So as mentioned earlier, because this is part of what we do, more and more initiatives come along. So among those that I haven't said yet are a lot of social initiatives, helping the farmers. I cannot detail them anymore. Just ask me later if you want to hear more about them. The bonds, I've also said. whole environmental risk assessment. This is Hazard Hunter, which I mentioned, exclusion list. We are the only member of UNGC today. I went to their booth just to tell them I'm present. Philippines is represented at the COP meeting. 10% KRAs, as mentioned, and we also have a mandatory course in sustainability. You want to hear this? Take on an internship with me. we'll give you a course here on mandatory sustainability, basic facts. I do have a couple of guys, all from LaSalle, so this is a challenge. UP, you may want to volunteer as interns, and I tell you leave with a lot of knowledge on sustainability. Oh, by the way, we have 3 high-rise buildings. All of them are 100% renewable energy. So happily. Okay, and thank you. And our branches, we have 20 EDGE-certified branches already. Okay, so lastly, because of all of those things, this is record high. We've won already, how many are we on? 16 awards today. Last year, we had 14 awards in sustainability. What's a normal number? 2 to 3. But we have 16. And that's our president, that's our CFO. Anyway, we're just happy to note that we have done 16 already. And lastly, I want you to know that it is important, again, these are ESG initiatives, okay? But remember, what is important is that there is an economic gain out of your sustainability initiatives. Let's move here to social. So decent work and economic growth, that's our commitment. Financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and as mentioned, reduction of risks. Okay, so wrapping it up, I'll skip this. So remember, always look for the economic gain in everything that you do, and let's do it together. We always have to be collaborating in what we do, and just make sure that you don't stop with just being green. Look for that goal, look for that financial benefit, what makes you happy, economic and financial benefit, or anything else that makes you happy as you do green. Okay? So this is something everybody in the world is doing, so don't be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna, please do stay on stage as I invite the rest of the remaining panelists who are still here with us, because we're about to open the floor, not necessarily for a Q&A, but really to drive home the point of insights from the morning session of our Sustainability Forum. So Mr. Jaime, can we have you back? Mr. Jaime Z. Urquijo. We also have Mr. Sui Suarez. He's still here with us from Aboitiz Power. Philip Kunhing will be joining us, and 2 of UP's very own, Professor of UP National College of Public Administration and Governments, Professor Maria Faina L. Diola, and Dr. Nathaniel B. Diola, who is a professor of the UP Institute of Civil Engineering. Wow, you got engineering and government professors. Please, Sui. Hi, of course, ladies first. Joanne. So our panelists who kindly stayed with us, thank you, as we will hear first from our UP professors. Please take your seats, professors. We have Dr. Diola and Professor Diola. Ladies first. She has quite a lot of insight, so let's give the floor first to our UP professors. Thank you. And at any point, please feel free to react, panelists.
Okay, so thank you so much, and it's nice to meet you. I don't know if I have students who are here right now. So I teach public administration and governance at the National College of Public Administration and Governance. Kasama po doon ay yung voluntary sector management. So we teach also CSO engagements with government, including the private sector. So I've written down several insights, actually very good insights about the practices of our private sector. So I was also hoping that our students would have really curious questions. So probably it's because of the exposure. And I'm glad also Isa asked you if your parents talk to you about sustainability. We do have sons. studying in UP as well, and we talk a lot about sustainability and all. These are some insights, and they may react, our friends from the private sector. But the most positive value I saw in particular that have very good relevance on government are the following. So first is their search for societal value. I think that's very laudable. In the search for societal value and in the building of communities, at least in terms of our first speaker, it's building thriving communities. The word thriving is very important. It's very significant. Of course, there will always be a however. The things that will really promote participation among the people, of course, is there's what you call already co-production and co-creation. In public administration, we emphasize that a lot. Co-production, co-creation is both knowledge and practice. And so the search for, actually it begins with the problem construction or framing of the problems. Our speakers have identified and they've tried to define the problems. And of course, that's from the point of view of the private sector. What's usually mentioned at the moment there's the IBF. I know that you are exposed to the IBF. That's the emphasis is on the bottom of the pyramid. So the balancing act between social problems and economic directions of the sector, of the private sector and the government sector is very much challenging and a balancing act. But I think to be more sustainable also across sectors, I guess the emphasis has always been to search for those in GDAS or the geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas.
Professor, sorry, if I may open the floor to my speakers to react to what you just said. That yes, thriving is possible. There is that push and the drive. However, are you feeling like, especially with government co-creation and co-responsibilities, that's still a pain point, I think, throughout, across BPI, Aboitiz Power, and Ayala Corporation, just to say the real situation. Yes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're always looking for partnerships. I started my career during the Aquino administration when the PPP Center really sort of came back into effect and saw the incredible tool that was to really incentivize and push the private sector to really become more involved in public sector projects. And this administration has really focused on it again, and my colleagues obviously from Aboitiz really actively participating as we are. So that is absolutely top of mind, an area. But balancing those two, I mean, for us, really integral to the way that we think that value is to be created, right? Coming back to that purpose, building businesses that ultimately enable people to thrive, we have to be solving that societal pain point in order for us to think that this is really worth us investing time, effort, and resources into. But absolutely resonates, so very top of mind.
So we would like to pipe in, because of course BPI is under the Ayala Corporation.
Yeah, I reflect upon thankfully Manila Bulletin published an op-ed today, and that where I wrote there that I think the title is Synergies with Communities. So very timing. I think it's not possible to operate in any community, if you are ignored, worse if you're hated, diba? It's best that you are valued, diba? And much better if you are loved. So, and therefore by doing so, you are, and I don't think that synergy it's never a one-way thing, diba? Walang synergy na ikaw lang. It has to be mutual. So there.
I'd like to ask a question actually, and especially with Joanne, because she just came from COP29. No?
Yeah, I was going to say that last. What happened in Baku?
Yeah, you have a U.S. president who's about to enter in January who actually calls global warming a hoax, and he actually doesn't believe in climate change. What do you feel is going to be really happening in 2025 in terms of sustainability, with the U.S. being one of the leading carbon emission producers, and yet you're going to have a president who, by historical record, blocked a lot of measures and laws that were sort of like pushing for global emissions to be reduced.
Fresh from Baku, listen up.
Well, They don't even talk about him there.
Good.
It's already assumed, no, that the policies will again be the same as how they were during his previous term.
Which is bad.
Yes. Bad for the sustainability initiatives of everyone, both government and the private sector. My experience personally is that in BPI, we were able to help very small SMEs, no, in the countryside, because USAID had the guarantee facility, 50%. So we could lend to those who could barely submit or meet the requirements of an SME borrower. With USAID, it was lending out. And USAID was so happily taking videos, no, recording of the various SMEs we helped outside Cebu, Davao, Manila. It has to be really at the countryside. So imagine that very successful project being stopped and starting to regain momentum now just to be told that he won. So I don't want to be political here, but really that is the implication. And in fact, it is already assumed as all of the initiatives there are being pursued anyway with an assumption that all of these things will go back to how they were during his term.
So that's something to think about. And that I hope also touched on what Professor Diola was saying, na go far-flung, go to the other needs that need more of these sustainability efforts. May I now open the floor for Dr. Nathaniel Diola? I hope you don't mind. I am managing the time. Your insight and what is it a takeaway from our speakers?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I teach civil engineering, and in our profession, in our field, we are very much concerned about sustainability. As Arthur Land earlier discussed about how to incorporate sustainability in all the undertakings. The presentations today, I'm very glad that I'm here. The common thread here is that we subscribe to the sustainable goals. We subscribe to this for the common good. And the question is really how each and every one of us will really implement or really do our part. So we have here students, no? So earlier there was a question, how will you do, what will you do to attain these goals? Well, in our case, even in projects, some of you will be doing thesis here. Even in our projects, we actually encourage them to identify which sustainable goal will they be targeting. So, and I think everybody will have its own expression or way of doing things. But the thing is, if we are committed to doing this, we are focused on contributing even a little to the cause, then it will be worthwhile.
Well, what's beautiful here today is you are exposed to not just companies in the Philippines, but companies in the Philippines that are making a mark in the world. Yeah. You all saw each speaker and the companies that they represent have been making their marks in a global sustainability scale, not just with awards or accolades, but really doing or walking the talk. So I can only hope that most of you will look into especially the partner companies that we have invited here today, so that once you step out of the University of the Philippines, having your diplomas and being graduates, it's time for you to take action as well. If on that note, may I wrap this up? I'm so sorry because it is lunch break. Can we give a round of applause to my UP professors and to my panelists, Philip Kuning. May I ask you to please stand. Actually, Philip, could you step aside first as we have our speakers with our panelists from UP to have a group photo. Stand by, please, Manila Bulletin team. Let's get a photo only of our speakers and our professors from the UP. Again, thank you very much, Professor Maria Faina Diola and Dr. Nathaniel B. Diola, for joining us in the panel. Philip, please stand by. I'd now like to invite our Manila Bulletin team, Secretary Sunny Coloma, please, to be joined by Mr. Jordan Tan. Also, please come on up. We have Irish Lorenzo from, of course, M-Brand, and Mr. Ray Lagan, our editor. That's it. Everybody squeeze in. And while they're smiling for photos, listen up. Who's going to take home some prizes? Again, you get Toblerone. We got 20 winners of Toblerone. Bayan Nicole Bondok, Maria Serena Caldit, Adrian Gale Redon Diaz, Juliana Malyari, Ron Princess Vina Pagkaliwagan, Hailey Anchua, Peter Alain Cruz Jr., Janica Kyle de Guzman, and Justine Riz de Guzman. Gio Gerara or Herrera Devora. With that, can we give again our panelists, please, our esteemed speakers and the whole of the Manila Bulletin team, a round of applause. Thank you for your generosity and time, everyone. We really do appreciate it. Rihanna Gabriel Gamboa, Andrew Jane Labios, Jairus Limpiada, Pamela Paula Maceda, Odi Kiara May Martinez, Joseph Andrew Panagiton, Jolene Ashley Puno, Francesca Lisette Quicho. You may now return to your seats. Thank you, everybody. Jolene Ashley Puno, Francesca Lisette Quicho, Charles Myrel Samson, and Justin Borlagdon. Congratulations. Enjoy your Toblerone. Finally, one winner of an SM gift certificate worth 2,000 pesos, Samantha Lu Arinto, or Arinto. Samantha Lu Arinto? Is that correct? Time to claim your prizes. Again, please enjoy the lunch break. Check out the booths outside. Collect 6 stamps in total so that you can get a sweet treat. You still qualify for the 50 to 1% collected stamps from the booths outside. That's it for the morning panel of the first day of the Manila Bulletin Sustainability Forum. Come back exactly at 1 o'clock. Your afternoon session will be headed or hosted by Sam Thurman. My name's 1:30. Sorry, let's make that 1:30 p.m. to resume the afternoon program. Enjoy your lunch. Come back by 1:30. Thank you, everyone.